Lieutenant Colonel Lerner, what do we currently know about the hostages kidnapped or taken by Hamas? And talk to me about efforts by the Israeli Defense Force to get them back to their families.
Peter, the hostage issue is a national top priority on all levels. So there are combined efforts, both operational and diplomatic. There are currently 241 hostages being held by Hamas, Israelis and foreign nationals, across a different age group from 10 months old till 88. It is one of the missions of the war, of our efforts, and we are operating on the ground, at air and at sea, and utilizing all of the tools that we have. Of course, we're able to rescue one hostage last week, and we're utilizing all of the efforts in order to bring everybody home.
Now, there are also concerns about the IDF activities, especially with the ground, latest grounding force that you are using, about the casualties because of unarmed civilians who are impacted by what Hamas is doing, and your response and the efforts to get these hostages back, as well as defeat Hamas. Talk to me about efforts to limit these casualties.
The IDF is operating based on principles of distinction, military necessity, proportionality, and weighing up the three of those components together in order to achieve our military goal. In order to conduct that, one of our main efforts in the last 3 weeks has been to evacuate people from harm's way. We've been encouraging people through text messages, through phone calls, through voice messages, through leaflets we've dropped from the sky, phoning people and encourage them to leave the combat zone. This is where Hamas is operating, in the north of the Gaza Strip, and you need to go south. It is safer in the south. There is no combat going on in the south, and that's what we've been doing. We've seen a huge shift of people. Around 1 million people or so have left the Gaza Strip, the north of the Gaza Strip, gone down south in order to get out of harm's way. We are still pursuing that effort today, even as the ground operations are ongoing and expanding. Our goal is to try and limit the civilian casualties as the operation proceeds. It is an unfortunate reality of warfare but we need to remember, we did not ask for this war. We did not plan on going to war. So much so that the IDF actually failed the people of Israel, because we were working under the assumption that Hamas doesn't want to have a war with us. And they were able to conduct such a brutal massacre. And now we are responding to that to make sure that, not because of what happened on October 7th, 2023, but to make sure that October 7th will never, ever happen again.
Well, people have been talking about Israel's intelligence capabilities over the years, which has been proven, as experts say, and they're wondering how Israel dropped the ball in that manner. You talked about it, but the other question people are asking is, with this ground operations being undertaken by the IDF, is the goal to defeat Hamas achievable? Because some people are wondering if this is even achievable, because they will mingle with the so-called unarmed civilians, and you might not find people that you think you can find.
So that question is actually a couple of questions combined. And I would say, first of all, is it achievable? My answer is we have no choice. So when we look at the reality on the ground, there is no alternative. Hamas have to be banished from the realm of existence. So when we say defeat, dismantle, destroy Hamas, we're actually saying that Hamas as a governing authority will no longer exist. Our perspective is that Hamas as a governing authority has to go. It has to go. It has to be, the world needs to rally around this idea. The world needs to help us implement it. It is a regime change for an unlawful regime. And that is why the situation, the paradigm has to change. Regarding the intelligence failure, indeed, the intelligence failure was on a strategic level to begin with. And that influenced all of the processes beneath that strategic level. If the working assumption that Hamas isn't going to, or isn't attempting to go to war with Israel, that determined all of the, I would say, assets, efforts, components, the gathering, that in the end influenced the amount of forces that you have on the ground on that Saturday, that terrible Saturday 4 weeks ago. So, but despite that, we have a good grasp of what Hamas is. We knew what they have. We knew what they were building. We knew what they were doing, but we didn't translate that into the actions, the horrific actions that they did. We didn't have the plan. So that while there are gaps in the intelligence of the specifics of conducting an attack, and while we had a huge misunderstanding about what they were actually planning, that they were actually planning to do so, the grasp of what Hamas is, how they operate, where they operate, who are the leaders, who are their commanders, who are the planners, who are the equippers, who are who's building the rockets, who's building the tunnels, the terror tunnel infrastructure, where the tunnels are. That we have a good grasp on, and I would say a very high level, high grade intelligence. So while the strategic level there's a problem, the tactical level there's a good strong position, and I would say we've proven it over the last week or so with the ground operations as they've been expanding day by day and going deeper and deeper. So yes, it's a process. It will end in defeat of Hamas as a governing authority. We're determined to do it, and as I said, we really don't have any other choice. There is no way that Israel can go back to the situation of October 6th, the day before.
Well, Lieutenant Colonel Peter Lerner, before you go, talk to me about the latest development about Israel's border with Lebanon, especially following the recent clashes there.
So Hezbollah has been escalating the confrontation on the border with Israel. We believe it's under the instructions of Iran. We've had extensive rocket fire, mortar fire, attempts to infiltrate Israel. They've used drones, sniper fire, as well as machine gun fire. So there's lots of events that have happened. We have, I think, 5 or 6 soldiers on our side that have been killed in these exchanges. And we have struck extensively against Hezbollah that have conducted these attacks against us, most of the time actually preempting their attacks. So if there's an anti-tank guided missile squad planning to launch a rocket, our efforts are to take them out before they actually conduct the launch. We are very focused on what's happening on the border with Gaza. We want to remain and achieve our mission there, and that is why we're not looking to expand the confrontation with Hezbollah on the north. So I would say Hezbollah need to decide, are they working for Iran or the people of Lebanon? I would say to the government of Lebanon, you need to take charge of what's happening in the south and prevent Hezbollah from escalating the situation, because Lebanon has a lot to lose if this deteriorates. And to Hezbollah, I say, look very carefully how we are dismantling and destroying Hamas in Gaza, and think very carefully if you want to cross that threshold. And finally, what we're doing is reinforcing our forces on the front line. So we have, in the last month, we've recruited some 300,000 reservists. It's the largest amount of reservists that we've recruited in the history of the IDF. So they are across forces and across all of the different fronts, both Gaza and also the northern front. And on the north, they are prepared. We have evacuated everybody in the 5-kilometer radius from the border area. So there are no civilians or very little civilians in the northern area. So that's mitigating and minimizing the civilian threat that Hezbollah can cause the damage to. We evacuated the town of Kiryat Shmona, a town of some 25,000 people. And that's what we're currently doing, trying to limit the level of escalation that Hezbollah can drag us into, on one hand, but be very well prepared if that does happen. You know, in Gaza currently, less than half of our Air Force are engaged. If we need to mobilize on the north, we are strong. We have been collecting intelligence for many years about Hezbollah. We have a good grasp of what they are doing. We know where they're hiding. We know where they potentially could launch. And the numbers of their casualties, although we're trying not to escalate, show that we have a good grasp and also a good operational capability to intercept. They need to be very, very thoughtful before engaging Israel on a broader scale.
Thank you very much, Lieutenant Colonel Peter Lerner, for speaking with the Voice of America News.
Thank you, Peter.
We appreciate your time.
Okay.
Thank you.